NBC News has just confirmed that actor Malcolm-Jamal Warner has died at the age of 54. Authorities in Costa Rica telling NBC News that Warner accidentally drowned while swimming in the ocean on Sunday. Warner is best known for, of course, his Emmy-nominated role.
Welcome back to Fame Drop, Costa Rica, where the ocean shimmers like glass and the jungle hugs the coastline like it's guarding a secret. But on July 20th, that picture-perfect scene turned cold. Malcolm-Jamal Warner, 54, known to millions as Theo, was out there on a beach getaway with his family. Just a simple walk into the waves supposed to be peaceful. Instead, it turned into a final act. Authorities say a strong current pulled him under, just like that. People nearby didn't hesitate. They jumped in, trying to bring him back to life.
Coast of a town called Cocles in the province of Limon. He was swimming at Playa Grande. I mean, I've visited Costa Rica a few times. I was there with my family a few years ago, and those currents can be very strong.
The Red Cross fought for over 20 minutes, but in the end, Warner was gone, just like that. Now here's the thing, the official report says it was an accident. Drowning, no foul play, wrapped up quick, neat, clean, too clean, like someone couldn't wait to shut the door on it. Something's off, and people are feeling it. This wasn't just some actor. Warner was a whole era, black brilliance wrapped in charisma. He was the cool older cousin you trusted on TV, and in real life, he was speaking truth when others stayed quiet. So when they tell us he just disappeared in calm waters, nah, that raises questions. And here's where the whole thing gets murky.
So unbelievable there. And Branson, I also was reading that just days ago, he had another podcast episode that was dropped. And now a lot of, fans are starting to really listen to that as maybe one of his last times that you hear him.
Another man, 29 years old from Nicaragua, went into the water too, supposedly trying to help. But who is he? No name, no photos, no media. Not a single word from the guy. He walked out of the hospital fine and vanished. If he was just a regular guy trying to save someone, why all the secrecy? And Warner? Friends say he could swim. This wasn't some beginner getting caught out. Plus, Playa Grande? It's watched, tracked, and that day, the tide was chill. The math ain't mathing. Now let's talk timing. Just days before this, Warner dropped what turned out to be his final podcast episode. Not All Hood was only a month old, but this episode hit different. No fluff, no filters. He came for the industry's neck. Talked about how Hollywood flips black stories into stereotypes, then cashes in.
Just wanted to remind you, as I remind myself, that no matter what's going on, there's always a reason to smile. Like if you just take a minute to stop and take stock, I guarantee you can find at least one reason to smile. And if for some reason you can't find a reason to smile, then that's probably the best time to be the reason for somebody else to smile.
He wasn't whispering, he was making noise. He said straight up, there is an aspect of just living in this country where so much of the deck has been stacked against us. Listening now, that ain't just a thought. It sounds like a warning. Think about it. How many times have we seen this movie before? A talented black voice starts speaking too loud, gets too real, and suddenly, silence. Prince, Nipsey, Chadwick, Michael. Different paths, same ending. It's like history's stuck on repeat, but Warner wasn't reckless. He was strategic, calculated. So for him to suddenly vanish right after that podcast, that's not a coincidence, it's a question mark. And the whispers, they're calling it the blacklist theory. Rumor is, there's a private list circling behind closed doors in Hollywood. A hit list for the voices that won't stay quiet. When you become a problem, when you push too far, that list makes sure you're dealt with.
Swimming, he had gone out to the coastline just before sunrise, and a little after sunrise, got into the water. Not too many details about what exactly happened once he was in the water, but authorities did end up finding his body actually hundreds of yards away down the shoreline. His body was discovered in a rocky cove. It was brushed up against that rocky cove.
This wasn't some conspiracy cooked up in a chat room. People in the industry know, they just won't say it out loud. But look close enough. The pattern staring you right in the face. They say there's a list, unspoken, secret, but real. A list full of actors, musicians, and directors who suddenly stop getting booked, watch their deals vanish into thin air, or worse, face a sudden tragic end.
Really had was a multi-decade career in Hollywood, spanning several different shows. I did a little bit of research before this, and he had about 84 credits on his resume before passing away at just 54 years old. And TMZ also obtained photo, possibly the last photo of him that we may even have ever seen on TMZ.com at the airport on July 13th coming into Costa Rica. It's just so tragic to look at that photo and think that just a week later he'd be passing away.
And I think what so many people can appreciate is he was a true creative. He talked about African-American culture in such a beautiful way. I think Wendell Pierce put it best when I saw something that he posted. He challenged himself in music, art, cinema, spoken word, and writing. He had a huge capacity for joy. He exercised his right of self-determination.
So now we ask, was Malcolm-Jamal Warner added to that list? And if he was, who made that call? Let's look at the timeline again. His podcast kicked off in early June. Cool, creative, bold. But by mid-July, Warner was dropping heat. He started calling out the media game, the culture vultures, the system built on black ideas without giving credit. And then, boom, less than 2 weeks later, he's gone. His family left in shock. His fans and former castmates posting tributes, brokenhearted. Meanwhile, down in Costa Rica, the whole investigation gets zipped up quiet, real quiet, labeled accidental and tossed into the pile like it was just another beach mishap. No family interviews, no official rescue scene photos, not a single follow-up on the mystery swimmer, not even a basic press briefing, just a slow, silent fade out like someone didn't want too many eyes on this.
Historic and frozen in time as this iconic character. What did that mean for television, and what does it still mean to this day?
Sam, Theo Huxtable was me. Theo Huxtable was my brothers. Theo Huxtable was the first time someone that looked like me saw someone that looked like himself on television. He was the epitome of what we as kids, in a certain community were growing up.
But here's what's even more off, the so-called rescuer. This unnamed guy was said to be in bad shape right after Warner was pulled out, ICU-level condition. But fast forward 48 hours, he's fine. Not just stable, discharged, gone. According to sources close to Dre, Mauricio Solano, and Carla, that's a wild recovery for someone who was supposedly yanked around by a deadly riptide. Now look, we're not saying the man wasn't trying to help, but was that really the whole story? Or was he there for something else? Some rumors say he wasn't just a random guy on the beach. Some say he may have been connected to Warner's crew. But Costa Rica's Judicial Investigation Agency, they claim there was zero link between them. Still, eyewitnesses saw something different. They say this dude wasn't just passing by. He was already in the water, real close, real focused, watching, waiting. And when Warner went under, he didn't hesitate. That don't sound random. So now we've got a man with no name, no photos, no press, no nothing, just dipped out after making headlines. Why is that? And get this, we pulled the official reports and everything in them feels foggy, super vague. Stuff like apparently swept away or bystanders tried to help, but no clear breakdown of the timeline, no hard details. Nobody saying who saw what first, how long he was under, or what condition he was in when they pulled him out. You don't get that level of haze with high-profile drownings, especially not when it's a celebrity. So what's missing? And more importantly, why? Let's not forget what Warner told a reporter back in 2013. I have peace of mind. And for me, you can't put a price on that. He wasn't chasing stardom anymore. He had a wife, a daughter. He kept his distance from the spotlight on purpose. He was living low-key, building something solid. So why now? Why does his voice get shut down just as he starts building a real platform, his podcast, a place where he could speak truth with no filter? And what about his co-hosts, Baraka and Candace Kelly? They've gone radio silent. No new episodes, no tributes, no wrap-up, no memorial, nothing. It's like the whole project got erased in one night. People are crying for Theo, but barely anyone is looking into the voice. The man who was finally saying what others wouldn't, who was starting to shake things up. The actor is gone, but maybe the advocate is what someone didn't want sticking around. Even Eddie Griffin, his longtime friend and former co-star, didn't hide the truth in his tribute. He said, "We went to war with the Hollywood machine, and sometimes with each other because that's what brothers do." That line right there, "went to war with the Hollywood machine," that's not just poetic, that's real talk. But what kind of war were they fighting? And who was fighting back? Here's what we know. Malcolm-Jamal Warner wasn't just coasting off old fame. Over the past few years, he was putting in work behind the scenes, mentoring younger actors, telling them to think twice before signing on to projects that played into tired stereotypes. He was challenging scripts, questioning roles, and showing the next wave how to move with intention. He wasn't just Theo from the sitcom anymore. He was becoming a disruptor in a space that doesn't like being questioned, especially not from someone who knows how the machine runs from the inside. And that kind of energy, it doesn't always get welcomed with open arms.
What do you want people to remember about him?
Oh boy, he was never afraid to go to his room and study and make sure he followed whatever he had learned in the acting school.
Turning now to a Hollywood tragedy, we're all trying to process this. Of course, we're talking about the death of actor Malcolm-Jamal Warner. He is just 54 years old. Officials say that he drowned while on vacation with his family. He was in Costa Rica at the time.
So now here we are. A respected actor dies under suspicious circumstances. A mysterious rescuer whose identity is still locked up tight. A final podcast episode that sounds more like a coded goodbye than just another drop. And somehow, still no mainstream outlets digging into this? Just cookie-cutter headlines. Drowning confirmed. Tragic loss. Gone too soon. End of story? Nah, we're not letting it slide like that. Not when too many pieces don't sit right. The timelines feel stretched. The gaps are too wide. And Warner, he spent his final days doing what many won't. Telling the truth, whether folks were ready to hear it or not.
Yes, obviously so heartbreaking. Such a tragedy. Here in the office, so many Cosby Show fans of this wonderful actor, and he had a very long career even after the show that he was known.
So what do we do now? We zoom out and look at the bigger picture, because this isn't the first time we've seen the lights dim too early on a voice that was shaking up the status quo. Chadwick Boseman worked through a deadly illness while still putting out masterpiece after masterpiece, all while the public was kept in the dark. Kobe Bryant, that helicopter fell from the sky on a morning so foggy it grounded other flights. Nipsey Hussle, shot down in his own neighborhood while leading a movement that was changing lives block by block. Different stories, different settings, but the same weight. These weren't just entertainers or athletes, they were builders. They were reshaping how we see Black power, ownership, and creativity. And every time one of those voices goes silent, we're told the same thing. Just a tragedy, nothing more. But come on, how many times can we chalk it up to coincidence before it stops looking random and starts looking intentional?
In terms of the things that continue to perpetuate the negative stereotype of people of color, we've always had the Cosby Show to hold up against that.
Now, let's be clear, we're not claiming every loss is part of some hidden agenda, but we are saying the industry always seems to come out clean when it happens. And who benefits every time a strong, outspoken Black storyteller suddenly stops talking? That's where Warner fits into this pattern. He wasn't out here just living in nostalgia. He was challenging the way legacies are built and remembered. He was calling out the gatekeepers, talking about mental health, image politics, cultural misrepresentation, all the stuff people like to avoid in polite company. And most importantly, he wasn't doing it for clout. He already had his legacy. He had the respect. He had the platform, and nothing left to prove. He was moving freely, and maybe that was the problem. When you mix influence, independence, and a sharp tongue, that combo tends to trigger alarms in all the right back rooms. You won't see publicists admitting it on record, but behind closed doors, there are lists, not official, not written down, but real. Quiet rankings made by execs on who's easy to control, who's got a little heat, and who's straight up dangerous to the brand's long-term play.
What's good? Yes, I got the flower in my hair. Today's my daughter's birthday. She put the flower there, so I'm rocking it. What? It's a beautiful day here in Atlanta. I just wanted to shout out and just spread some love and some good cheer. And, you know, life is out here lifing, right? For me and for everybody else. But
we've talked to two separate managers who used to work with top-tier studios back in the 2010s, and both said the same thing. Once someone's marked as a problem, it's rarely some loud, obvious blacklist. It's more like a slow ghosting. Deals stall. Invitations stop showing up. Suddenly, their image starts shifting. Difficult, unpredictable, and in the darkest turns, tragedies get wrapped up like gift boxes. Clean, simple, no loose threads.
The salesman said this will last a lifetime. And just think, if I live to be 90, that's about $1 a year.
Now let's zoom back in on Costa Rica, because that detail matters. Warner didn't move recklessly. Everything he touched, every trip he took had purpose. And Costa Rica, it sells peace. Pura vida, beautiful coastlines, eco-lodges, yoga retreats, remote work dreams. It's the kind of place rich folks go to unplug and tech heads go to reboot. But if you really know the region, you know there's another side to the story. Behind the tourist gloss are pockets of power that don't make it to travel blogs. Quiet land wars, corruption that doesn't scream, it whispers, and a tourism economy trained to keep scandals under wraps. So if someone needed a tragic accident involving a high-profile black figure to look like a simple beach mishap, this place would be perfect. The postcard sells the cover. So we ask again, why Playa Grande? Why that beach? Why the early afternoon when there's usually foot traffic and even short-staffed lifeguards nearby? And what's up with the current? Not flagged as aggressive that week, yet somehow it's fatal to a grown man who could swim? Then there's the second man, anonymous, alive, stabilized, gone. Dr. Mauricio Solano Cordella confirmed the 29-year-old was treated and discharged without complications. That's the official line.
Malcolm-Jamal Warner, an actor who rose to fame as the beloved Theo Huxtable on 8 seasons of The Cosby Show, died on Sunday.
What is this?
Officials say the 54-year-old was swimming at a Costa Rican beach.
But here's the thing, a man listed in critical condition earlier that day doesn't just bounce back, sign paperwork, and vanish. No media appearance, no sit down to say he did what he could, no photo ops, no update, nothing. That ain't how public rescue stories usually go, unless someone's making sure it doesn't. Then there's the autopsy report, asphyxiation by submersion. Filed, finalized, done, fast. Yes, Costa Rica's investigators have their protocols, and yes, we respect that. But let's be real, the speed becomes its own character in this story. When a tragedy gets wrapped before the world starts asking questions, that's when it stops feeling natural. We've seen it before, when headlines need to be controlled. Facts move fast. Studios do it all the time. Drop a scandal, throw an NDA, shift the messaging by Monday morning. This felt like that, a wrap-up written with media training in mind. And we're supposed to believe none of that same strategy was applied here?
Show and Theo's character in particular.
Yeah. And he moved around with such integrity, and he is very intentional about the roles that he took.
Exactly right.
His legacy is going to last forever.
Yeah.
He will be missed. Our love goes out to his family and our thoughts and prayers. Sharika, thank you.
Now, think about what Warner was really building with that podcast. This wasn't a clout-chasing, messy tell-all. He was laying the groundwork for something bigger, documenting the truth, talking about mental health in Black communities, calling out how African dance styles get labeled inappropriate by Western eyes, breaking down how only certain people get the space to be complicated while the rest get boxed in. That podcast wasn't a side gig. It was an archive in the making, something that could grow into books, panel talks, school curriculums, real influence, not filtered through TV contracts or studio rewrites. That kind of platform, you can't co-opt it unless you own it. And if you can't own it, well, you know how that ends. And here's that word again. Legacy. This is where it gets heavier. Samantha Shepard, the Cornell cinema scholar, called Warner's death a significant cultural loss. That wasn't just grief talking. She was naming what he carried. Real leverage, real weight, and real reach. To millions, he was still Theo, the familiar face from every living room TV in the 80s and 90s. Gen X had grown up with him. Early millennials clung to the nostalgia, but Warner had grown beyond that image. He wasn't just the TV son anymore. He was Grammy-nominated, knee-deep in the podcast space, mentoring the next generation and challenging every box they tried to fit him into. And that kind of growth, that kind of refusal to flatten out and stay in the lane they handed him, that makes people nervous. Let's be real. When a Black figure starts mixing credibility with range, shaking off labels, and refusing to retire into irrelevance, it gets exhausting for the system. They call it complexity fatigue, but we've seen this play out before. Over the last few years, it's been a rotation of tragedy, unexpected deaths, sudden collapses, random travel incidents, one after another, and always just neat enough to not raise alarms. No FBI, no big investigations, because none of it fits the criminal box. Just public mourning, some black and white tributes from brands, and then silence. But communities, we feel the tension. We clock the patterns. We see the holes in the official stories. And truthfully, why should we assume those reports are giving us the full picture? People close to Warner say he was careful. He didn't make spontaneous moves in unfamiliar countries. Security? Locked down. Schedules? Tight. A former road manager told us straight, under condition of anonymity, that Warner didn't play when it came to traveling abroad. No last-minute dips into unpredictable waters. So why Playa Grande? Who picked that spot? Was it recommended? Was a travel planner tied to entertainment circles involved? Did someone with pull help steer the setup? Because someone had to know where the currents ran. Someone had to understand the slow response times that come with jurisdictional hurdles. These aren't wild theories. They're just the kind of questions that have to be asked when everything lines up too conveniently. Then there's the emergency timeline. According to Costa Rica's Red Cross, 2 men were already out of the water when ambulances arrived. So who pulled them out? How many people were actually there? Were any of them trained? And how is it that not one single rescuer has popped up online for attention? No TikToks, no Instagram stories, not even a clout-chasing comment. That's not normal in 2025. Silence can mean respect, or it can mean NDAs. And let's not pretend this industry doesn't know how to handle a situation globally. Hollywood's crisis teams speak every language they need to. Spanish, Portuguese, French, you name it. All to make sure international headlines don't spiral into messy domestic PR disasters. So if Warner's final podcast struck the wrong nerve with the wrong execs, it wouldn't take a Bond villain to flip the switch, just a few hushed phone calls and a little help from a friendly foreign bureaucracy happy to stay out of America's cultural firestorms. Now let's talk tributes. Tracy Ellis Ross said, "What an actor and friend you were." Beyonce wrote, "Rest in power, Malcolm-Jamal Warner." Real emotion, genuine sorrow, but also carefully worded. No one with real reach is asking the hard questions out loud. No one saying what we all feel. Why don't we know the other man's name? Why was the podcast feed cut mid-buzz like someone yanked the cord? Sure, maybe this was a tragic accident. Maybe it really was just bad luck. Maybe the ocean doesn't care how cautious you are. Maybe that second man just wants peace and privacy. That's the official version, and it might be true. But when you stack it next to the history, when you line it up beside the sudden losses of so many bold Black storytellers, the kind who blend truth-telling with influence, it doesn't sit right. It sticks in your throat. Whether or not a secret list exists, whether or not the machine moved in Costa Rica, one thing's clear. The system still wins when a voice like his is turned off and the rest of us are told to stop asking why. That's the weight of Warner's final project. Not all Hood wasn't about drama, it was about depth. It was about showing how wide, rich, and layered Black identity really is. That what sells on TV is often a copy, flattened out, edited down, safe for export. And if you're running an industry that thrives off that kind of edited version, the last thing you want is a beloved former sitcom son using his mic like a flashlight and walking straight into the dark corners. We felt it. He was getting ready to go deeper, to say names, to press on power, and now that story's been cut off mid-sentence. We're left with a beach that looks calm, but holds a story full of chaos. A vanished rescuer, a fast-tracked ruling, a podcast that sounds like a message left before the door slammed shut, and a question that won't go away. If someone like Malcolm-Jamal Warner could be silenced just as he sharpened his voice, who's next on the list? So, what do you see? What don't you trust? Drop it, say it, because this either keeps happening by chance, or someone out there's following a playbook. We're watching, we're listening, and we're not going quiet. Subscribe, like, and drop a comment. We want to hear what you think. What's your take? What feels off to you? Let's talk about it.